All right, good evening, everyone. We are in a different room than normal. So just as a matter of housekeeping, in order to speak so that folks on Zoom can hear us, we'll need
Also
to use
true.
the microphone. So it'll be our
over at the court, and don't think to say to go to the court. The courthouse has public records as well.
We're going to do a
Thank you,
couple
sir.
things differently.
So
this
you can also
evening.
check there as
First is
well.
we're gonna have
That's
the board
maybe,
members
if
go
you got a
around
ton
and
of
actually
tenants or
everyone in the room go
applications
around and
that
just
might
say
be a little
their
bit more
names, if they're part of
difficult,
the board,
that
what
probably becomes a
affiliation they
cost
have.
issue of whether the
We'll
service
do
is
that
worth
from
it.
now on
But
to help with the
that's where that
minutes later on.
information
And
is
for those who
available.
are
Any
maybe
kind of public
tuning
record
in will know who
service
we are.
or outlet
So we'll
or
start with that.
aggregation
My name's
kind of
Laura
service
Lombard.
or
I'm the
background
chair
check
of
kind
the
of
board. And I'll go to Michael here.
Hi,
Sixth
Michael
floor of the
McCorkle.
records
I'm the
department
vice
is where they
chair.
have this.
Happy to
Thank
be
you.
here. Thank you.
And they just give us online access, so my apologies for my ignorance there. Yes.
I'm Penny Feist. I'm the Assistant Director of Public Works, so I'm here as staff.
Hi, I'm Ty Gorman. I'm the Kansas National
So
Representative
the
for
question
Sierra Club
is, let's
Council,
say a
Champaign.
tenant is evicted through the court process. We've got our writ of restitution
Hello,
after a journal entry of judgment. And we've evicted the tenant. It was served by, sheriff, got them out, but there's personal property left behind. So the tenant goes back into the property to either collect their things or maybe continue living there. Is that kind of the situation? So what is our legal situation? Well, it's not a tenancy.
Renee Batchman, City of Wichita.
So it's kind of a difficult, we're not landlord tenant
Lori
anymore.
Lawrence, representing District
so
1 City Council.
Really, what we
Whichever the
need is
boy, just a
kind of a
Wichita citizen
trespassing
checking it.
issue. We can
And then
try to
let's
call
go
the
and
police
do
and
that
ask for
also
them
on the
to
Zoom.
functionally evict someone for trespassing.
Let's see, Cody, you're up.
That can be tricky. Sometimes the police
Or
won't do
what I
that
could do is maybe
because
if I could
someone
see
was a
better,
tenant.
read the names off
basically.
on the.
I've
Zoom.
advised before that if
Okay, so we
someone
got,
does,
Cody Irwin, who is
but this
on
is
the
a little
board.
different too. So
We have
you've got your writ of
Esther Lee,
restitution,
who is also
so you
on the
can
board,
probably use
Lauren
that
Clary,
document
who's on
again
the
as well.
board.
So it kind of just
Lucy-
depends on the situation. The closer it
Lucia
is to the
Sherman
first
is new
time
to
that
our
you
board,
evicted
but
him, you can
recently
use
joined.
that document to say you can't be
and
here.
then Tammy
and
Ray
ask
is
the sheriff
also
to
on the
remove
board.
them. You can go back to court on that same
But you
case
can't hear me.
as
Am I
well
connected to
and ask
the
for another writ of
Zoom?
restitution to evict them from the property on the same basis. But I think what I'm
Can you
getting
hear me
at
now?
here, maybe as I wrap up my answer, is a lot of stuff. There's a lot of specific facts that might come up in that situation. So I think
Yeah, you're
consulting
probably
with
hearing
an
part of the
attorney
other
would be
meeting
best.
next door. Can you
Asking
hear
police
us
helps in this situation, but a lot of times
fairly
they're
well,
looking
even
for a
with the
court
meeting next
order as
door?
well. So using
Or
the
is it
one you
picking up too
have,
much?
or just asking the court again is probably going to be your best bet there.
There might be a
Unfortunately.
way
But yeah,
on
that can be a real
Zoom
difficult
to
situation. Getting folks
try
out.
going to more.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Choose
And
real quick, and then
there's a way to have background noises. Yeah.
no, and sorry if I made that sound too much like a rule. The state rule is just provide reasonable notice and enter during a reasonable time period. Usually
Yeah,
that
do,
means for
do
courts
high
to provide
background
about
speech.
24 hours notice
See if that helps.
and enter during business hours or at a time that is agreed upon by the tenant. That's not, well, yeah, and
Okay, we're testing again.
that's
Did
kind
that
of a
help? We
general
put on
rule as well, I want to say.
fading out the
It
background
kind of
noise.
depends on the
Did that help at
relationship
all?
you have. The statute says reasonable, but that's usually kind of what the courts think is a bit more reasonable, providing that notice. That does not apply in emergency situations.
Are you able to get off of
I
mute?
do want to emphasize. So if there is like a gas leak or something.
Hey, Laura, I can hear you. It sounds like there's maybe two
before
Zoom
going
meetings
in.
going on at one time. We can hear
Just
everything.
reasonable notice and at a
Okay.
reasonable time. is what we're
Turn the
looking
city
for.
of Wichita off or mute that one.
That worked.
But if
All
it's
right, can you
based on the
guys hear?
tenancy,
How's it
attorney's
now?
fees are generally not allowed.
Better, worse?
Under state statute. Yeah. And I think the issue was it was written into a lot
Same.
of leases and just kind of really tilted the scales a bit too much one way. But
You're probably
that's
picking
just
up-
kind
I
of how
think-
the
I
statute.
think what's happening is you're picking up the other room. We'll just have to go ahead and best as you can. As soon as you unmute, they both come back. Are you, Alicia, are you able to hear just me when I talk when we put it on mute?
Yes, and we'll assume in this situation there was proper notice before everything was sold. And that's really the biggest thing because it's a very quirky way that the notice has to happen. But yes, but that also is used
We're
to
not-
defray storage costs. So when property is left behind, our costs aren't done, right? It's not just back rent and damage to property or the things that existed when the court order was entered. That property is being stored at cost now.
We're gonna see.
And that's another kind of thing to like,
Bring up.
the statute doesn't say how much storage fee should be. You know, sometimes stuff even gets moved to a storage facility. So
Lucia,
it's a
can you
lot
introduce
clearer
yourself?
what that would be. But I think a lot of times that sale then is used to defray things like storage costs over the period of time of having to keep the property. But then also,
Yes.
yeah, it does go into the amount of rent owed.
So
It's just like that amount of money goes into the amount of money owed to the housing provider.
On the Parks and Recs
So if you
board,
sued them for an amount of money later, you would have to include the property sold as basically a line item for your total.
I'm representing the Parks and Rec board. Sorry, I'm having a hard time like focusing and like not picking up on their conversation. I apologize for that. But yeah, so I'm Lucia Sherman. I am with the Parks and Rec board, and so I am just representing that committee and here to learn and see what we can do for our community.
Reasonable, but storing it
Great,
there
thank
and
you for
then
joining.
charging some for use of the property, I think that's usually how that happens. Yes, sir. Oh, no.
Next on the agenda is the sustainability speaks on energy burden. So that's going to be held on February 23rd at the Evergreen Community Center and Library at 5:30 p.m. The presenter will be Jessica Travis, who works for the Climate and Energy Project. So we hope that all of you will come join that evening.
Sure. Yeah, it is trespassing even if you have a key to the property when you're ordered by the court. to
All
not
right,
be
so
there.
next
Yeah.
we'll go to approval of the minutes. We need to do the last 2 months. As it turned out, we didn't
Yes.
have quorum last time. We thought we did, but turned out we didn't. So with that, has everyone had a chance to review both December and January minutes?
Yeah, there's days that you have to put it in the paper and then
Yes,
days
okay,
that you have to
sounds
wait
good.
and then a days,
Welcome,
certain
everybody.
days limit that you have to mail it
We're
to
having
them
a
as
little bit
well.
of a
And there's kind
logistical
of
issue with the
there's a lot of
microphone and
moving
the
parts
Zoom,
to
but
that
we're
notice.
we're
Yeah.
pressing on.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Exactly.
Okay.
So I
can
think
have a
maybe
motion
too, also,
to
this is kind
approve
of a way
both
where
the
we think of,
December
here are the
and
legal
January
issues, right?
minutes?
Here are the law, here's the law, but what's a bit more
And a second?
practical? Maybe even coming to
Sounds
a
good.
side agreement
All
of you
those
can
in
get your
favor, and
property.
for those of you who
right?
are on
Like
Zoom,
this is the
go ahead and
cost,
put
or
a,
like
you know,
you need to
a
pay me
hand
by
up
this
or
time, or like
something to let us
you know,
know that you're voting as well.
setting up some sort of
But all those in
agreement
favor
is
say aye.
probably in everybody's best
Aye.
interest. Even if you get a lot of money from selling property, it's
Okay.
annoying to store
All those
property, put
opposed,
stuff in
same
the
sign.
paper, find someone to sell it to, all that sort of stuff. So
Okay,
it's kind of
hearing
just thinking
none,
through that. And I
we
think,
have
yeah,
approved
storing
both
at
the
the place,
December and
especially if you
January
don't have a
minutes.
tenant that's moving in
All right.
right
We're
away.
going to go to
probably
public
the
comment.
easiest
I
way
will
to do
give
it.
the microphone
Then,
to those who
yeah,
want to speak.
changing the
We are,
locks,
due to the fact
trespass
that we have
issues,
several
gotta think about
presentations
that.
this evening.
You know, if we've got a
We
better
are limiting
relationship with
public
the tenant,
comment to
maybe
2
those issues
people
won't
for
come
no
up
more
as
than 10
much, but
minutes each.
it's tough when property's left
So
behind.
whoever
It's not
raises their
really
hand
a
first
firewall as
today
much.
gets to speak, and we'll go from there. Okay.
Oh,
Yep.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay.
I've been going to the Riverfest meetings and
Yeah, let's say
what they
till the
want to
5th or
know, if
something. Yeah.
anybody from this group has any ideas that they want to deliver to the meeting, you can run it past me and then I can give them the information. But if you have any good thoughts about how we can make the Riverfest more sustainable, I'd appreciate it. Oh, I'm Jennifer Connolly. Thank you.
Okay. Mhm.
All right, anyone on Zoom that would like to make a public comment today? If so, please go off of mute and state your name, and you've got 4 minutes.
Mhm.
All right, hearing none. We are going to go ahead and get to our discussion items today. I'm pleased to say that we have Ty Gorman from the Sierra Club here to present on IRA opportunities.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ty.
For sure.
Right, let's test this out. Can anybody online
Mhm.
hear me? Yes, great. We'll pull up the presentation here in a minute, and I just want to thank you all for having me here today.
Well, yeah,
I've
and let's
gotten to present during the public comment
Yeah,
period a few times. in
So
the
let's
past.
unpack this a little bit. Basically, the question we've got here, and I want to touch a little bit on notice real quick. The question is, let's say somebody's behind on rent. We've served notices, about to start the eviction process, and then they pay us part of it. Something like that. What are our rights? What do we do there? From the landlord housing provider perspective, a really big thing is to say when we're accepting money, whether this affects the eviction or not. So if someone pays you in full, under state law, if the period of time has passed, let's say the 3 days has passed after the grace period, after rent's due, they got a 3-day notice, it's after that 3 days, and they're trying to pay you back. Even if they paid you in full, a landlord can still move forward with eviction after the 3-day period. It has to be a totally separate agreement to give up the eviction authority, basically. But an important part of that is when you accept it, providing some sort of note or written confirmation that you're preserving your rights for eviction. So there's not confusion about how that's going to happen. And that's really the key there. And that is a harsh rule. After the 3 days, any amount of rent paid does not negate the eviction authority. That can still move forward. But it's important for the landlord, especially when going to trial, to have a clear record of what that is, for sure.
See, how's that? There we go.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, just being clear, throughout the process.
Do a concert here with my, I can scroll past. Can everybody see in here? Too loud in the mic on the Zoom? Okay. So, all right. The first time I came to Wichita a little while ago, the IRA had just passed, and IRA is the huge federal bill that went through recently.
That's
the
going to be
climate bill ever to
now, and that's
the
almost an
national
estate law
House
issue,
and
basically,
Senate.
because you're going to
So,
have to figure out
the
who is,
Bipartisan Infrastructure Act funding
state or
is just
administering the
hitting
state.
now. And I believe next month you'll hear from Penny
So it's in
about
Sedgwick
the,
County, presumably,
some of
right?
those,
And I think maybe going to that
programs that
6th
are
floor.
already available. The
And looking
IRA
for the
funding will
records
be
there
coming
would
later
probably
in the
be your
year,
best
and the
approach.
opportunity to
And trying to
prepare
find
for
if
it
that
and access
property is
those
tied
dollars as they
to,
come up
a
is
state case,
coming over the
basically,
next
a
few
probate
months.
case.
So
What it's called, probate
when I came
court
to
is
Wichita a
where
few months
estate,
ago, I
administration
proposed to
happens.
City
Yeah, for sure.
Council
Oh,
a
yeah,
number of
I had to wade into that Summit Kansas Legal Services. and it's a
recommendations
whole-
to
yeah,
prepare
very
for the
tricky
Inflation
political
Reduction Act. So that's
I
the
think we had one
topic
here, and then
that I
back
wanted to
this
cover
one.
today with y'all. The principles here of our
The question is,
work
how
are
long
rooted in
can an
justice
eviction
in the
stay on your
Sierra Club,
record? And basically, as long
equity,
as public records
democracy,
are available.
and local agency.
It doesn't become expunged.
Here's
There's
the
no real
agenda.
process
So I
for
want to
that,
give a
like
quick
there are for some criminal
context
kind of
around energy
cases or
burden and
records.
voluntary
And like I
shut-offs
said, there are some
as
limited
a
remedies
core,
available. Maybe if you went
reason
back
that we need to
way
address this
when
with
and just
federal
agreed with
dollars.
your landlord to dismiss the
And,
case after
that
like
goes
10
some of
years
the
or something,
biggest
but who has that
opportunities,
relationship
not comprehensive
with
by
their
any
property
means about
managers, right?
what
And
the
even that
IRA
court doesn't
offers,
have
but
to
just to get a
accept it.
taste of how
So it's just a
big
very
this,
long-term
opportunity
consequence.
is
Unfortunately.
once a generation
Yes.
opportunity to move things forward here. And then I'll go over the recommendations for the city council, and just to give a little why am I here type of plug. when I
Yeah,
spoke
so
to
let's say that you've got a
the
subtenant
majority of city
that's
council
not supposed to
supported
be there.
these,
You evict
but
the
the mayor
tenant,
basically said
subtenant
this needs to
continues
be
to
on the same
stay.
page with and come through the sustainability board.
I mean,
So we need to,
It's
all
really a
present together
similar
on these
answer
types of
to
issues
the
for the city
question
council.
that we had before, where
So
technically they're
let's
trespassing,
go over some energy burden
but the police
basics
maybe
here.
aren't gonna like
This is a map
enforce that
that
without a
Sierra Club
specific
put
court order.
together.
And then
using
I would
public data,
recommend,
census
it's
tract data
because you
showing
don't have a
red line
tenancy,
districts
so you can't be
that
like,
in
you are paying
Wichita,
me
the
rent. Like what rent?
racial
Um,
injustice
But I think
housing
it would still be
policy
good to
in
be
the
like,
past.
hey, give them a notice that
And
you're
then
gonna
that
start
is
the court
overlaid with
case.
this
3
on the left
days,
side,
and
energy
then
burden,
on that be
which
like, you're
is
not
the percent of
supposed to be
household
here.
income
You have no right
that
to
people
be here.
spend
There's no
on
tenancy
energy.
at all. And that's the
And,
basis for you going
you
to
can see
eviction
that
court and then
the
proceeding
folks
that.
who were redlined pay a higher
It'll
percentage of
add
their
some
income
time,
for energy.
unfortunately, but as part of that, you
Down
can also
here,
see
that asthma
damages
rates in this
for
dark red
rent owed to
and,
you functional.
covers the
So
same.
they should owe you
So
for the amount
pollution,
of rent that they
basically,
stay.
especially
that
childhood
you weren't
asthma,
paid for,
especially
and any
particulate
other
matter
damage that was done to your
coming
house.
from things like coal plants and diesel fuel cause major health issues. in
And
the
that's why I
same
start with that for
areas
sure.
that
So
were racially
starting with the
discriminated
police
against
and
get
just
a bunch of
getting a
energy.
record going,
And then
especially for
here
trespass issues
is
is important.
the
And
race
then if, once you go to court too,
overlay,
you've got
so
that
you can
kind
see
of
that it's
record
a racial
as well,
justice, economic
which is pretty
justice,
good proof.
and
to
health
afford,
issue.
usually.
In Wichita, it's even starker in Kansas City, Kansas, as far as the line delineation, and a lot of the work I do there is similar. So excited to kind of be on the ground here a little more. So wanted to
Yeah, I'd say
just show
rule of
that
reason
there
there,
are
you know, if
national
you
focus
think,
on where low
you
income
know, a
areas and
property
racial justice
manager, you
areas
want to
overlay
manage the
with
property and go
energy
by somewhat
opportunity.
regularly. Sure.
So you can see Wichita right here.
Especially if
There's
you're
one
not
of those
entering the
areas that
property.
overlap
It's like
as
you're just
far
stopping
as,
by and looking at stuff.
low income region.
If
and
we
an
are going to
energy
enter the
producing
property, we just want to
energy community
provide notice that we're going to.
That's important
And
in the
like
IRA,
that notice, we just want
because
to
they
be
have
reasonable
the
about this.
environmental justice.
If there was an issue, it makes sense to go in and
Where
check on that.
40% of the
After you
dollars
told
from
the tenant that's
that
what's
huge
gonna
bill should be
If
going
there
to
isn't,
environmental
there
justice
has not
communities.
been
who
any
have been
kind of
most
issue, then it's
impacted and
probably a
left
little
behind
more
by, the
unreasonable
fossil fuel
to
economy.
constantly check in with the tenant. So
So
a lot
let's
of
get
it's
into
based
some
a
of
lot
these
on personal
IRA
relationships and trying to be
opportunities and
reasonable within those
what clean
relationships,
energy
even from the legal
context here in Wichita.
Yes.
The first thing to note is that to meet our climate goals and our equity goals. the
Well, and I'm
electric
not gonna
sector
recommend
is
that necessarily
central
because
and
we're
huge. And
Yeah, and as
maybe
long as
the
we're
largest
using that as a
section that we
legitimate
can deal
basis
with
for
immediately
change. So, and
to
a
meet
helpful
those
thing,
goals.
maybe the way to,
So that's
yeah.
why
Yeah,
one of the reasons
exactly.
why
So
Sierra
if we
Club
want to
is
stop by the
obviously
property
focused
instead
on
of just stopping
the,
by the property,
utilities to be
we
on
have
full
some things that we
campaign
can
and so
do as the
focused on,
landlord to help
making
you know,
these
make it a habitable place to
utilities
live. And
more
that can be a
just
great time to
and
check in
transfer
with the
clean
property
energy
and
as
manage
fast as
well.
possible.
Makes total sense. Yeah, for sure. And
Here's
my apologies, we
Evergy,
just don't
our
want to use it
utility
as a
here in
pretext,
Wichita.
and I just didn't want to suggest that
The
at
Sierra
all.
Club brought out the Dirty Truth report
Yeah.
over the past couple of years, comparing all the major
Oh, for sure. And that
utilities
one's oftentimes a
and
fight of whose
how
responsibility
far
it
they've
is. So
come,
maybe help facilitate.
or how far they
facilitate that
have to go
relationship for
in
sure.
their commitments towards reaching the climate goals that we all need to reach by 2030. You can see that Excel up here nearby and NIPSCO nearby are much farther along. Evergy has not made any of the commitments that they need to, and have a long way to go. I think since this
Well,
report
and, you
came
know, I
out,
think,
they've moved up a little bit because of some
Yeah,
solar
no.
energy commitments to
no,
about
no,
8
for sure,
on
for
this
sure.
scale. Here's a look at the coal plants that currently provide the majority of our energy capacity for Wichita and how much
Yeah, and
resource adequacy is required
and just most of
here.
the issues are just
So you can
like
just
whether
see
someone's
that
paid enough.
These,
So it's, and
these
you know,
parts
it's, you want
past
to be
the
a
6,000 mark
certain
there
level of
are all
specific
coal
in the
plants.
lease, but let's be
And we have to
realistic
build a
too,
lot more
like
clean energy
I
to
read
get rid of
leases
those
sometimes, but
in the
even
near
my own
future.
all the time, you know, it's like,
Uh,
and I'm a lawyer that
Lawrence
does that
plant
sort of
was
stuff.
scheduled to
So it's like
close
maybe that
in,
wouldn't
next
necessarily
year,
practically affect the
but they
relationship all
recently
that
walked
much either.
that promise
But
back.
the more that you can spell
And,
out in the
the
lease,
CEO of
then the
Evergy
more you can
recently
point
said
to,
that
I
it
think,
wouldn't
when
be
you're
closed
talking
this
with
year
the
or
tenant
next year,
of
probably not
this
the
is
year
why I'm
after, and
asking
we'll
for
figure it
this.
out when we get to it
So
as far as
I
when
don't
that
think
makes
there's
sense for
one
us.
issue
That's outside of the
necessarily that's
IRP
come up
process. It
that I
just
would
goes
say
to
needs
show
to
how
be in a
much
lease, but just
more
who's
focus
responsible
the
for
pressure
what
we
parts of
need
the
within the
property, very
utility
clearly spelling out when
regulatory
rents due, what
process.
grace periods
So,
are,
the Kansas
how notice
Corporation
is going to
Commission
be
into this
provided,
discussion.
is it going to be written
And,
or emailed, like
They
those sorts of things that
basically
just
prove the
here is what
costs
the
of
whole
Evergy.
thing is going to
They
look like.
look at the
And
integrated
again,
resource
so if a
plan.
tenant is
and they
upset that you're
decide,
trying to enforce
what
the lease
Evergy
agreement,
is allowed to
you
get
can,
paid
instead
for
of pointing
by
to
the
the word
customers.
reasonable, like I've had to do
So
a lot
when
of
we
times,
work
point to something a
in
bit more
the
specific. That's
KCC,
like, you
is what
know,
I'll
this
call
is what
them,
you had.
we talk
basically,
about
I
how they
I'll
need
try to think of it
close those
maybe
coal
while.
plants, replace them with
Um,
much cheaper, clean
No, I
energy,
would agree, because just from my
healthier,
perspective,
clean energy
you know, being in
portfolios.
eviction court the last
Um,
6 months,
So
the
this
vast
is
majority of
a
cases. involve
concept
payment
where,
increases.
you know, when you talk
So-
about renewables with a lot
I
of
think
folks
we
in
just
this industry,
maybe
they'll
just
say,
the
well,
land
the sun
that you're
don't
taking the
shine all
time
the time, and the
to
wind doesn't blow all the
make
time, so we
sure
have to
as
have
much as you can,
fossil
they're
fuel
understanding what they're
because of
signing
that.
and that,
And
like
what
you said, that
these
everything's clear,
show
late
and
fees,
what
due dates,
other
things like that,
states and
because that is what most
the
people in
models all
court for.
prove is that when you combine clean energy resources, it becomes reliable. It becomes just acting like a coal plant or a gas plant does now as far as grid stability and reliability goes. So we know exactly from capacity modeling from real life in a lot of places in the world that it's possible to get up to much closer to 80% plus on clean energy and have a fully reliable grid. The description of the clean energy portfolio there is basically a combination of energy efficiency, solar, wind, batteries.
And I think maybe
demand
just the
response.
more that we
Those are the
deviate
big
from a
five.
kind of lease,
So
the more
this
we need to maybe
shows,
talk with the
well,
tenant
I guess on the
beforehand
last slide, I'll go ahead and
that
say that's
probably
that's way
reasonable.
better than
And
coal
just, yeah,
cost
communicating
wise
with them
now. If we built
regularly,
right
being
now
clear
all
on
the
where they can
energy
pay
we
and stuff
could,
like that. That's
clean
the
energy,
thing. And
and retired coal
The
plants as
last
fast
thing I
as
would
possible,
suggest too,
that would
because a
save
lot of these are
customers money
non-payment cases, is
on
at
a
least
levelized
check out
cost
the
of energy
eviction
basis.
resolution program
And,
website for things
there's-
like
So we're
relocation
past the point
assistance
of waiting
programs,
for clean energy
potential
to be
support for
cheaper.
tenants
It's
moving,
already
things like
here.
that.
And
It's kind
it
of weird to
shows that,
provide that
those
information
energy
sometimes
portfolios
because
also
it may
are
just be
cheaper
like
than-
you're trying to
than
like
any new
super
gas
evict
plant.
them, right? And like
And
trying
as
to
the price of
antagonize,
gas goes
but
up,
also it can be helpful
it's,
to provide that
certainly cheaper than
information
any,
so that people can move a
present
little bit
gas
easier
plants.
too.
But,
So towing that line of just
gas
providing the
is,
most information to help move out and those resources while
the
making
peaker
things
fuel
work
right
at the
now.
same time.
So
Yeah. And
when
I
you
just
get
want to
that-
say too, like,
Can
we're
you guys
definitely past
press-
time now, so please, you can leave or whatever, but I'll
I'm sorry, I
answer
didn't hear that.
questions
Can you
and
say that
stay
again?
here too. So thank you so much, everybody. I
We
appreciate it.
Lucia and I, we're commenting in the chat. We cannot hear anything over. I believe that the mic in the
Yeah.
meeting next door is connected to our system, and we're trying to pick out bits and pieces of what we can overhear, but we can't hear anything over the person talking next door.
Okay, did the IT guy have any advice there?
It
Don't know.
genuinely sounds like that the mic next door is connected to the system in this room. I have never used any of those systems. I really, but that's just what it feels like.
We, in this room, we can barely hear the other room, so it has to be an IT issue where the other mic is also tapped into the
Definitely
system from over there.
sounds like the microphone that is being transmitted is the one that's like right in front of you guys, because it's very, very loud and very, very clear.
Oh.
So I'm not sure who's connected, but they're talking
Well, and
about
thank you, everybody. We'll probably just like sort of narrow down now, but thanks so much,
landlords and
everybody. Have a good
tenants
night.
and evictions and stuff like that. So
The gentleman in the room next door just said, "Thank you, everybody, and have a great night." So I think maybe their meeting's over, or he's just passing the mic. I'm not sure.
Did that make a difference when I did switch to microphone lines? Or can you still hear that clear? Did they say that they can still hear the other room? Can you hear me, anyone out there?
yeah, I can hear you. You were louder. People in the room are more far away. I don't know if it's something that you did or if the gentleman is just done talking, but I currently can't hear him.
Well, okay, so is it easy to hear me now? I'll wait for an answer from, can you hear me now, Lucia?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh, great. Well, I won't repeat everything I've already said, but I hope, we can go in and everybody on the line can, pick up at this point. Just went through all the clean energy and, versus fossil fuel, clean energy, cheaper, healthier, better for low-income communities. The resources needed to replace those plants for like a year. We ran analysis showing how much it would take to replace these current plants everybody has, which energy goals. And I'll move right on past that. Just goes to show a lot of weak within and one more thing I'm going to show the IRA comes into the cost effectiveness of renewable energy. Go to that. Almost all the plants in the US right now. It's the IT in here, but I think we solved the problem. Change microphone setting, so my phone online wants to speak up now because it's still hard to hear me.
We're just getting bits and pieces of words.
Oh, hold on, I think there's still a problem there. They're not hearing me online, they're only getting this pieces of what the other room isn't as loud. It's still what's up
Can we
here?
the microphone the other room was using?
Here for test. And take a back on. Other levels online. Yes, Is I think any different. Really, really won't come on. Maybe. Can you check that microphone table over there?
Can you guys hear us? Lucia or Cody? Esther? Anyone?
I can hear you, but you're like Charlie Brown teacher. It's not, it's just noise.
Yeah, it's not transmitting through the system at all, so we're just
Yeah.
hearing like the echo of the microphone.
All right, now we're experimenting with a different. Can anyone online hear me now? Can anyone online hear me now? What's loud?
That's better for the moment. Yeah.
Okay. There's a little feedback in the room. Is that front on? Okay. Well, we're gonna try this now. Do I still sound like a Charlie Brown?
Yes, it's still just real broken.
Wow. That is. Okay.
Again, I always point out, if you could get the microphone from the other room sounded perfectly.
They're close to the We're gonna take that suggestion, so that these, unless you can hear me perfectly now, the old the other. All right, so the late meeting.
Usually we're in. But I mean, technology is great. And it's not. That.
Would you give a joint? I don't, yeah, I don't think any of this has been recorded. Can anyone online hear me yet? Interesting. An excellent problem solver here. I'll speak into your phone. Wait, so you're hearing me now, Cody? Let's see.
Yes, we can only hear you now, thankfully.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's good news. We don't know what changed, but I'm glad you can hear me out there. All right. Well, all right. Well, restarting here. Let's see. I need to share my screen again, right? Sorry, go ahead. And sorry, everyone online there who couldn't hear me at all before. Just in case you're completely lost, I'm Ty Gorman, the Kansas Beyond Coal representative, presenting about the Inflation Reduction Act and Wichita's energy burden and clean energy opportunities. And as soon as the presentation's back up on your screen, I'll pick up where I left off. All right, thank you. Here we go. Thank you for everybody for your patience with the tech difficulties. Let's jump right into the Inflation Reduction Act opportunities. Just cover a few of them here to give you a taste of what's changed and why now is the right time for the Sustainability Board to act and bring recommendations to the City Council to really focus on these opportunities and preparing to accept money from the federal government. Just as quick lead in, when I was up at the new electric buses up in central Kansas, and the EPA administrator came to that little town, he was asked why this little town in Kansas got this money right now, the first buses in the state. And he said, after some flattering talk about the town, he said, well, if you want to know the truth, it's because they were ready to receive it. They did the work before the money was ready. And then when the money was ready, we gave it to them because they were ready. So that's really what I've been trying to say to Wichita and KCK, is that as the two biggest environmental justice centers needs in the state of Kansas, we both need to be ready for this money to come through. We are in a great position to receive it. So some of the opportunities include these investment tax credit and production tax credits, which were renewed. And the main thing here for Wichita is that nonprofits, churches, government organizations can now receive a 30% grant, basically, but they are eligible for these tax credits as a grant. So that's a big change, first time in history that has happened, which really brings the cost down for any nonprofit or government entity. Let's move right on. So you got those little explanation of what those ETC and ITC do on the left side. Also want to bring a lot of attention to this residential energy efficiency 25D, 25C program that the DOE has as well. This is 30% off of project costs for any energy efficiency projects. I mean, there's a big list of eligible projects. So that is even, the clean energy definitely has a lot of environmental justice benefits, but for folks who really need to reduce energy burden, reduce energy bills, improve home health, have a whole host of benefits for the most vulnerable populations in Wichita. These energy efficiency, residential energy efficiency programs that have to be led by the city, because you're not going to get a ton of help fast from Evergy or the Kansas Housing Resources Corporation. I mean, they're doing their best, but it's Wichita has to be able to and ready to lead in getting these energy efficiency programs up and running for our most vulnerable populations. I think I have a question from the audience. Right. So the question is a good one. It is a lot of these tax credits look like they're for people who pay a lot of taxes, and a lot of people don't have a lot of tax liabilities. So where do we stand there? And so that's where I'd say the fact that the tax credits can be for nonprofit and government entities really comes in. So if we're financing, if as a public entity, the projects happening in these homes, if it's schools, if it's churches who are getting reduced energy prices and paying for these with grants, basically these energy efficiency and renewable energy projects, they get 30% off the top of that. And so that's where it really becomes cost effective for the public entities to invest in renewables. Go ahead, another question.
People that have huge capital gains, they can get a 5 to 10 year tax deferment by investing in these opportunity zones. And they can be combined with the Income Reduction Act to fund these energy projects. I've been working on this for the past like 5 years. So now is the time to really put a cohesive plan together and get this money flowing into Wichita. Oh, I'm Carla Jackson Patton, and I'm the founder of the Leonard Garrett Renaissance Institute. And Kent and Jennifer and I've been working on trying to create a microgrid. They're happening in other parts of the country. And, you know, it can happen here. So that's where the tax credits come in. And these projects are eligible for the energy tax credit. So it's detailed, but it is designed, you know, for these people that say they don't want to pay taxes. This is a way to get their money. Okay, you don't want to pay taxes. This is a tax deferment that you can use to your advantage.
Thank you. And just to put the finer point on it, it's not a tax credit anymore. This legislation made it not a tax credit. Basically, it made it a grant. You don't have to pay any taxes to get the money anymore. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, we're gonna have to go forward here. We're running out of time. So I won't take any more questions. I'll keep running through, I guess, right? Okay. We'll just run through these. DOA Energy Infrastructure Reinvestment Loan. This is an incredibly huge opportunity for clean energy to be deployed quickly. We can get into the details of this, and I'll have the presentation available so folks can reach out to me with questions. My contact information is on the slide deck. All right. Just another energy infrastructure reinvestment program. This one has a lot of parts and moving pieces as well. This is just kind of show the complexity and why we need staff and resources at the municipal level to engage in and look at the details of these programs. So that's the big headline here. Another giant opportunity that's happening fast is the green bank loans. That's billions of dollars available only for the next couple of years to have to basically have projects ready to go within the next year or two in order to get access to this huge pot of more or less free money from the federal government. So just staggering opportunity there, and billions and billions and billions in energy efficiency funding, direct funding from the Department of Energy and other organizations. So I'll skip through all that and go straight to what Wichita City Council can do right now to help prepare for this money and get the ball rolling. The first step is get staff time and resources to invest in community planning. What these grant applications and competitive grants that make up a lot of this require is to know that you're going to implement the project well. And to do that, you have to have a coalition of the most important people in the community to get this project done, which are, in this case, environmental justice communities, neighborhood associations, folks who really have reach into job training, like the housing organizations and assistance groups, churches. There's a whole range of organizations that the city and the utility have data to know who needs these projects and are already plugged into the populations that we need to be bringing energy efficiency and clean energy into their neighborhoods. So, I'll go ahead and say the 67214 zip code here in Wichita and Brandon Johnson's district. I met with him, and he was really excited about these funds and wanting to move forward with getting access to this federal money. And this grant here, I do want to spend a second on, just because in the next few months, EPA is going to release a competitive grant process. There's also some non-competitive grants, which we can keep tabs on. But the competitive grant process is $4.6 billion, mostly for environmental justice communities, just to plan to reduce carbon. So that's a big deal. Usually these grants are not paying not paying the people who need to prepare for them, not paying the folks in low-income communities, not paying the churches and the housing organizations and everybody I just mentioned. So this grant, if the city could access it by doing some coalition work and putting some staff time into it through the city manager right now, then we would be ready to get millions of dollars to pay for a community planning process. So I wanted to draw attention to that one. One way that we can do that is pass a resolution to the city council similar to resolution 200005, which KC Mo passed last year or the year before. And that resulted in a comprehensive community planning process. It also made some clean energy goals and set some targets, but it was a very brief, one-page long resolution that their city council passed that established a transparent community planning process and instructed staff from the city to facilitate that. So that's, I think, one thing that the Wichita City Council should definitely do to prepare for this money. You can see here that some of the parts of that you will then have education and facilitation with rulemaking organizations, the utility, the KCC, all these sorts of groups kind of play into that coalition building process. So that's just what that bottom part says. And again, I won't go into the details here since we're low on time, but an integrated resource plan intervention is the next step the city council can take to improve the transition to clean energy that the IRA facilitates. If Wichita joins basically a docket of the integrated resource plan in the utility and the KCC, I think I've talked about this a little bit in the room, but maybe not to the folks online. The utility has a 20-year plan that they approve through their regulator, the KCC. There's updates every year and a full modeling process every 3 years. But they make assumptions that benefit the utility and don't necessarily benefit the residents of a place like Wichita. Cities, Kansas City, Missouri did also pass within that same process, that climate plan that came from that resolution to intervene in their Missouri IRP docket. And that power of the city intervening and being a part of that is probably going to get Hawthorne coal plant closed a lot faster than it would have been otherwise, and have the interests of the especially energy burdened folks in Kansas City, Missouri, represented at that regulatory level. So all the Wichita City Council has to do is instruct the city manager to assign a legal team to the docket. That is something that they can do at any time. The IRP docket is open, and the rate case, the first rate case docket that Evergy has ever brought, that has ever been allowed to bring, is happening this year. So in probably June, I think now, they're going to propose a rate hike, and a lot of parties need to intervene. Wichita should be one of them. So that's the second recommendation here for the city council through the sustainability board. And here's just a little bit of a plug for that from the folks who did this in Michigan, showing that the participation of the city and the integrated resource plan really meant a lot to the regulatory agency there. And I'll mention that the KCC is pretty understaffed, overwhelmed by the responsibility of regulating a utility that dwarfs them in size and scope and budget and influence. So having other points of view that are powerful, like with the city of Wichita, come into that process really helps the KCC be a better regulator. Now we'll end here with some environmental justice pieces that should come together at the city level through that resolution that they can pass to have a community planning process. These are the demands that were brought from environmental justice groups and KCK that I work with. And, you know, you can have these kinds of goals be set at a municipal level and then work towards them through these funded planning processes and in the docket. And I think these are good basic goals for folks in Wichita. Let's not have any utility shutoffs that put people in medical danger. That's pretty basic, I think, and it's happening all the time. People are being put into danger and evicted. The folks next door have been talking for hours about all the details of eviction processes. A huge cause of that is utilities getting turned off on people because they're not allowed to have low income rates in this state. They're not allowed to like really help. They're not forced to help people at all. And the red tape around the assistance programs is really difficult to get through. So that brings us to the next couple points here, which are flat fees and charges on the bill. That some in KCK, this is an extreme issue, but it's still something that just hurts low-income folks way more, is having these flat fees on bills. So that's another element that they wanted. And the last one here really gets at the heart of what we're talking about in requiring the city to engage with folks to plan to get these federal dollars, to be transparent about that planning, to bring this to the communities that need it, and to collaborate, the utility to collaborate with these assistance programs, the whole range of assistance programs, to create a safer utility process. And you know, I think Evergy just opened a community assistance center. I can't remember, the service center in Wichita, and you know, that is for them like a little bit of a taste of what that program could look like, where they can only help a small percentage of the folks. But I've met people that work in the service center in Evergy, and they're really are trying to do these wraparound services for people, but obviously it's at a very small scale right now. The IRA could blow that scale out, have the utility be a true partner in connecting people with assistance dollars throughout the like incredible this array of state institutions for childcare, food, health, all these assistance programs people have to apply for separately. So that is 3 recommendations there. These get into some details that can happen in the short term for environmental justice communities to be safer. Some things that Wichita can advocate for if they intervene in the docket or pass the resolution. And just end here with maybe a plug for next month's program that that Penny will deliver on the energy efficiency programs that can be created and implemented by Wichita. So that'll collaborate with all the federal dollars. There's at least a dozen organizations that have access to and can implement efficiency programs. That's a huge part of making Wichita a more just and healthy community. So really appreciate all your time. I know I went on here with the tech issues, but I'll let Laura see if I have any time for questions, or I'll just pass it on.
All right, can you guys hear me online if I use this mic, or do I need to go up to the front? So it looks like there's a comment.
We can hear you.
You can hear me. Okay, perfect. Okay, good. It's both working. Well, first I want to say thank you for presenting today, and apologies for all of the technical issues that had kind of disrupted your presentation just a bit, a lot. So again, I want to thank you for that. And unfortunately, we don't have time for questions because I think we're actually going to have to shorten the agenda as it is tonight. But would you be able to share this presentation with the board?
Yes, it should be available already.
Okay,
we can
sounds
we can
good.
share that.
So we'll do that. And then, I guess the really, hopefully there's a quick answer to this. So what can we do from here? Is it, you want us to look at the key points and then have a vote to support towards the city? Is that what you're hoping we'll do maybe in the next month or so?
Yes, and I think we can look at resolution 2005. I'll be in the city for a few days. I would love to meet with anyone individually who would be interested anytime and through Saturday in person. And after that, anytime, contact me. My contact information is on the front of the slide deck here. And I would love to just help facilitate the process of writing those kind of a resolution recommendation for the city council within the next month or two. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Great.
Perfect. Thank you, Ty.
Thank you.
That's what I'm hearing. Yep.
He said that in the public. The mayor has said, as an answer to the question, that this recommendation should come through the sustainability board in a city council meeting a couple of months ago that I presented in. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ty. Appreciate you being here today and taking the drive. Okay, so I'm kind of looking at the timeline for the rest of the agenda. We have about 25 minutes left. So what I think I would propose, Michelle, would you be able to do yours in about 5 minutes, or do you think it would? Okay, let's have you do yours. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. I'm going to cut you off at that point, and I apologize for that. And then we will decide from there if both or which one we're going to talk about in terms of the proposed projects today. Okay, go ahead, Michelle.
Can everybody hear me? Oh, that's so loud. I hate microphones. I'm so sorry. Some of you are familiar faces. I've worked with you in a variety of ways. I'm with the Wichita State Environmental Finance Center. I'm not going to spend time explaining what that is, but if you would like to know, feel free to reach out and I will be happy to explain. The reason I'm here is Lauren from online invited me. We've been working on some sustainable materials management projects over the last several years. One of them was the Wichita Litter Study, which some of you may be familiar with. Another one that we've worked on is in St. Louis, and those are actual in-stream trash collection devices. So it's a big boom that goes across tributaries, and there are 3 of them, and it collects the trash, they pull it out, and we do basically the exact same thing that we did here in Wichita, is we count, we catalog, we grade and analyze. Yeah, exactly. Fortunately, we were in Wichita, so we didn't have to. Our project partners in St. Louis took care of that. They had lots of waiters. But that was the idea, because when we think about trash and litter, why it's ending up in the ocean and why it's ending up in the places that it is, it's common knowledge now that 80% of that comes from land. And it's a very large majority of the water that's ending up in our oceans is coming from urban rivers. Rivers that go right through an urban area, like say the Arkansas River through Wichita, for example. And so there's more and more, there's studies all over the place about coastal coastal debris, marine litter, all those kinds of fun things, but not a whole lot has been. I mean, there's Keep America Beautiful, which is amazing. But not a whole lot looking at these kind of interurban areas. So the point is, we are trying to, with Wichita State, with the Kansas Alliance for Wetlands and Streams, with the Great Plains Nature Center, with the city of Wichita, we're trying to get a trash trap into a waterway here in Wichita. And so we're in the collaboration stages and in the budgeting stages. And so that's why Lauren was like, hey, come talk about your trash trap project, because she's been on some of the calls because we connected on some other things. So our hope is to be able to, Troy Houtman from the city of Wichita is very much on board with having Parks and Rec help with maintaining that, but it's the community engagement, it's the data analysis, it's the purchase of the trap and all of that stuff that goes along with a 1.5 to 2 year long project. And the reason it would be that long is because in order to really understand what's flowing through the water, we need it over time. So we can't just pull some stuff out of the water and say, oh, this is what's littering it up. We need to know what's happening after rain events, where it's coming from, what kind of stuff we're finding. Is it all gas station styrofoam cups? Is it all single-use plastic bags? Is it Walmart food wrappers? That was one of the things we found a lot, or things like that. What is it that's flowing down the river over the course of time? And then we can kind of extrapolate out from that based on that data. So that's why I'm here to just let you know that we're trying to, because we did do the on land, we know what's happening there. We want to see what's happening in our river as well, so that we can maybe continue to have this prevention and remediation conversation right here in Wichita. Does that work? Is that 5 minutes?
Right around there. One quick question. Do you have any ideas of what the costs are?
We're looking so far for all of the organizations over the course of 1.5 to 2 years between 45 and 55,000. And there are some other entities that might be able to contribute some. We're not opposed to cobbling stuff together. That's not a problem, but yeah.
And could it be something that's over time? So at first you're trying to fund the actual buying of the trash trap, for example, and then later you're, I don't know what your sequence of needing funding might be as well.
Generally, no. Generally for a
Need it
project
upfront.
like that. So the group that we're bringing together was like, we don't want to run the project. We basically want the EFC to run it. And the way we have to run it is we have to have the money up front and then we sub-award out. But there are other options. I mean, we don't have to. It's just the cohort of people we brought together is like, no, you do it. We'll do all this other stuff, but you do all that crap.
Okay.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so
Fine.
sorry.
That's fine.
Project administration is not glamorous at all by any means, but, and then we would do the data analysis, which for me is glamorous. That's what I do. So
Fair enough.
the Ark River Coalition has certainly been involved in those meetings, and they are on board as well. The only reason I didn't mention that as far as the collaboration is that they would not request funding. So like the Kansas Alliance for Wetlands and Streams and Great Plains Nature Center, the Environmental Finance Center would need funding to participate, where like the Ark River Coalition would not. They are still doing some of those cleanups as well. The Riverwalk cleanup group with Kirsten. There's also ICT park pickers up in Sedgwick County Park every once in a while, so check them out too.
Sounds good. Well, as you have more information, send that over to us too, and then we can take a look at what we might be able to do. Sounds good. Perfect. Thank you.
I'm happy to answer questions. Feel free to reach out. I can leave cards if need be.
Sounds good. All right, so we have about 20 minutes, a little less. And we have two projects that we wanted to discuss tonight. The easiest way, do we have a representative from Green Spaces here? I know that. Two. Okay, so you all are, and then Lori, of course, represents the first project. So we've got the Yard Waste is Not Waste initiative, and we have, sorry, I scrolled down to the details. And the Delano Green Space as a project. Does the board have a preference on which one we discuss tonight? Lori, you're. I realize that, yep. So why don't you go ahead and go? Why don't you go ahead and present yours then?
Okay, so what we're trying to do is, our final goal is to ban yard waste in Wichita. The haulers are on board with this. They've all told us that they would like to do this. So it's pretty much a done deal with them. And they're the ones that are in control here, just so you know. But in order to get to that point, that's our 5-phase project that we're doing. First is education. How you reuse your yard waste, particularly by mulching. Mulching is the thing. And we also want to distribute mulching blades. There are several different ways to do that. And I'm not suggesting that we hand out mulching blades. I think we need to do a rebate, which I'm sorry, Penny. I know that that's staff time, but to me, that seems like the most beneficial way to do it, rather than having mulching blades being given away and then people trying to figure out what to do with them. We had talked about having a local lawnmower place. The hardware stores will not touch this because I tried, but maybe some little lawnmower places will do it, but they'd have to have more money than just the $30 cost of the blades. So that would be maybe more expensive than we want to do. So the rebate may, in the long run, be a less expensive way to go. We were looking at starting with 100 blades for $3,000. They're only $30 a piece. And let people submit their rebates, because we got all kinds of rebates. We got the water rebates. I mean, there's lots of different rebates that you can do online. So this would be the first step after some education. Then we would move into what we are hoping to do is a composting of yard waste for people who will not mulch. There would be some restrictions on that. It would have to be bagged up in paper bags that would be compostable. You'd have to do that. And you might have a fee, or it might be for free. We would have to see how the site comes out, and the site would need to be something probably that's already existing on city property. The city owns so much property here, and it would just be the matter of finding the right place. And I had already gotten in touch with Jerry, is that her name, with real estate? She did not respond, so she may think I'm like out of the blue and she doesn't care, but we need to contact her again and see if there's a site possible. And so if we can get this started, we may want to also put composting on that site. It might stay there, it might not. It might grow and we'd need a bigger site. It all depends on how it goes when we get to phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So phase 4 is setting up a drop-off site for yard waste. People can bring their bags and throw them over the fence or whatever. It won't be that way. Somebody will have to monitor it. But I'm just saying it would be a place for them to drop them off. Landscaping companies already take it to Brooks Landfill, where they also have compost at Brooks Landfill. That's way the heck up there. But this land is also going to have to be out. You know, nobody's going to want all these trucks coming by their house to drop off compost. Compost does not smell if it's cared for. So that's not the issue. It's just all the truck traffic probably bringing it in. So we'd have to be selective on where we would put this if we're able to do it. The final piece, once we have some people in line with composting and other people who don't want to do anything, is to give them no choice. Then if we had a compost place, we could make money off of that thing. I'm just saying, selling compost, people would buy it and it could meet all of the city's needs for their contractors. Every contractor would have access to that for the city. So there would not be that expense anymore for the city if we were able to set up compost. The final phase is a ban put forward by the city council. And like I said, we've got support from the haulers. They don't like to deal with that stuff. It's big, heavy, wet grass in plastic bags. and they fill up their trucks. And then they come back and get more trash and they fill up their trucks again. And every time they have that tipping fee, our rates don't go up, but their spring and fall is horrendous. So they are on board with this. So the final goal we can accomplish. Maybe we could just jump to that. We probably have to do a process. So that's how we have decided that we thought would be the best way to go about it. So I'm done. Do we need to make a recommendation to do it? The idea is there won't be. The idea is that everybody's going to start mulching. That's the whole education through phase one, is to let people know the benefits of mulching, keeping those nutrients on your lawns, and not spending all that extra time bagging, filling it up, putting it out by the curb. I mean, that's a lot of extra work for people that may not, especially, people that have a hard time mowing in the first place, can't do. Education about education on about how you do it. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, this compost would be grass and leaves. It would be grass and leaves and sticks, because people will put their sticks in there. They will. But it's not to compost big pieces of wood or any of that. It's not for food. So it would have to be just yard waste, just leaves, grass, and little sticks. So yeah, right. Yeah, no, somebody would have to be there to monitor what people are bringing and make sure that it's in paper so that you could just toss it on the compost pile and it would naturally biodegrade. There are a lot of steps to make this happen, to do the ban, but I know that with the haulers on board, we can do it. So that is the recommendation from our committee, and we have worked really hard on this to put this together. And we can make changes to it if you think that one piece doesn't fit. But it seems like a progression to us. And this is a group of about 7 people. So I don't know if we need to ask to approve us to start working on this. The cost for city to work on this is not something that I would know. But to do the blades, for 100 of them would be $3,000, $30 a piece. One of our members who actually works for solid waste for the county, Susan Erlenwine, serves on this with us. And she suggested that we go up to 7,500 to get 250 blades. We could do that a bit at a time rather than just get them all and then have to take them back, because we don't know. We don't know how successful it'll be. But so that could be 7,500 total. And we're looking at maybe bringing in a vendor in to manage the compost. And that would probably not have a cost. If it did, that cost would be borne by the people bringing the compost. There would be money to be made by that compost being sold, and the money would be saved by the city when they use it because they do compost, and they would be able to access that, and it wouldn't cost them anything. So there would be a cost savings versus all cost going out. The final, the compost pile looks like it could be about 20 to set it up and to get it operational. And if it's a success and we need to keep it ongoing, we would have to perhaps find staff, because volunteers can only do so much. Someone that could man the site. And then it would just be the weekends is all we would have it open initially for people to come and drop off. So it's not going to be terrible. But the estimated cost is 20 for the setup and the getting the contract put together. And doing the phase 5, which is the ban, is just a council vote. So no cost.
So Lori, should we maybe vote today in terms of we like your plan and that we would fund the first section of it today and then later down the road? Something, okay. Any discussion? Well, okay, let's do the motion first and then we'll do discussion. So may I ask for a motion to approve the overall plan and funding for the mulching blade rebate portion of it? Okay, a second? Okay, any discussion on, I think yeah.
I have questions and I can't hear if a motion was made and seconded. But I had a few questions, so I didn't know when would be a good time to ask those.
Yep, we're gonna do the discussion now. So just to let you all on the phone or on the Zoom call know, I asked for the motion. Michael McCorkle, so moved, and Deborah seconded. And then I called for discussion. So this is a good time for asking questions and commenting.
Is this for all of Wichita or just a certain district? Depending on how we approach it, it can be a pilot project. The majority of Wichita doesn't bag their grass. They don't. Most people just let it lie, or they don't care one way or the other, like me. You know, so if we did a pilot project, it would be in an area where homeowners association or something like that, so that we could just test and get everybody on board to do it. If we just do a drop off, or when we do the blades, it would be for anybody anywhere. Anybody that wants to switch over can switch over their blade. And when we got to the whole compost thing, as things progress, we'll also be able to see better what if we should do a project in a certain area or if we should do it in citywide, just depending on what kind of feedback we get and what kind of acceptance we get and what kind of support we get. I hope that helps, Lucia.
So have you done any surveying of any community or HOAs or anything like that? Have you done any surveying to hear what the community how they would respond? Because I'm just kind of curious to see if you've had any reaction one way or the other.
Most HOAs actually, if you're in an HOA, it's because you don't have to mow. No, not yours. Some of them have contracts with landscapers that come out and do all their mowing, because that's what I've heard. And so they're all different. Exactly, they're all different. And HOAs aren't necessarily our focus. That was kind of an example.
Yeah, that was just an example. I just meant anyone. And have you surveyed any of the community before we start trying to put into place a 5-phase project? Like, what I would like to know if we've done any research to figure out the reaction and the stance of the community.
The most research we've had done is from Nudge Compost, who is already doing this, and his reports on how that is going and how much his business has grown with the compost. And there are people asking him constantly for, can you take it? So there is a demand for it. Like I said, most people don't bag their grass in town. They just don't. Nobody in my neighborhood does. Just saying, and it's not a small neighborhood. Yeah, but I mean, a lot of people, the majority of people probably don't bag their leaves in the first place. Most people just mow. Depends on where you live and if your neighbors are judgmental. But yeah, or if the HOA demands it, that's part of it. Well, good. I know, but I don't see it at all where I live. Okay. So
But-
half the city, I don't know.
What I
don't
might
know. How do I
recommend
know?
for this evening,
I really wish we could hear everybody because there's a lot of conversation going on and that we're not aware of.
well, let me do this, guys, because we only have, again, a few more minutes. So I think what we should do is kind of keep the discussion with the board members for the rest of this particular one, because it's us who has to decide whether we're moving forward or not on this. But what I'm going to suggest myself is that maybe what we do is we approve. I personally, I think I'm for a tester, maybe do the 3,000 level to start for 100 and see how it goes for the rebate standpoint of it. That's probably what I would recommend. And then in terms of the entire planning, I'll open that comment just for board members. And I will pass the mic.
I know that
I will leave any other discussion up for the board members only tonight. Any other board members have questions or comments before we move forward?
I know that I'm new to the board and I would just say that my stance, just from what I've heard so far and going off of the information and kind of how things are handled at the parks, the Parks and Rec, that's just because of my reference. I would like to see a lot more information, a lot more, feedback. Yeah, I understand that a company does currently do it. Would be curious to know how up to date and current that information is. Is he any more of his feedback? I agree that maybe starting with that like pilot program of the 300, but I would be hesitant to push this full 5-phase project through without a little bit more information or research done.
Other board members? Lori, any response?
If you could help us do the research, that would be really good because all of us work. I'm just saying, we would need some assistance in doing this. Just like the city now has that bag survey that y'all have taken. Maybe we could do something like that. But the people that answer it are the people that are going to be opposed, just so you know. So that may not be a good indication, but that would be one way to do it. I don't know if you're suggesting that we go door to door. I'm not sure what you were thinking that we could do as far as a survey.
I want to apologize, and I don't mean to come off crass in any manner. But I also have a job and I'm not the one presenting the project or the phase to the committee. So I would just have expected a little more information maybe. So that way those of us who are on the board could be educated in a decision that we're going to make or that you're presenting in front of us. I'm not sure how needed it is or not needed. And if you're wanting us to make a vote on something like this, I would have just anticipated a little more information. But that being said, I also do have a job. So no, I can assist in things, but I would not be able to perform the surveying that would probably need to be done.
Right.
Please take all pretty at this time. Thank you for visiting Wichita Public Library.
Okay, I agree with you. We could do that. We just don't know how to do that yet. If this hinges on that for you, then
what we could do for this evening is amend the motion to that we will approve enough to test the mulching blade rebate concept and leave it there for the evening. Have you come back and with the city's help, because I think really what you were asking for was the city's help, not necessarily Lucia's directly, but find the right resources to get more of the information that we would need to approve a full 5-phase plan.
if we have to do a survey, we would definitely need the city's help.
Right.
And I don't even know how, I'll be curious to see what happens with past surveys. depending on how it's done. It's difficult to do with 400,000 people,
Sure.
but hopefully we can get some help from the city.
I would just say that I'm reluctant to see our time and energy and resources being spent on surveys to discover whether there's a need. I think we all pretty much know there are needs. And a small pilot program like this, I'd rather see the resources going into the pilot program and get the data from that than trying to get the data first.
Any other board member comments, either online as well? Anyone else want to comment from Zoom? Any other thoughts?
Sorry, this is Tammy. I was struggling to get off mute.
worries.
I'm sort of in line with you, Laura. With the initial 3,000 expense to then gauge interest. I'm agree with the last comment, as opposed to time and resources spent on a survey. If we just did something small that was the lower cost, that would really give us an indication into what that interest and if people were going to take that opportunity or not. So I could support comfortably that small initial first step.
You may note that a lot of this was written by Susan Erlenwine, who is the solid waste person for the county. 17% of our solid waste is leaves and grass. So that's why we saw this as an issue.
Absolutely. I'm going to call the question. So I think what we need to do is amend the original motion. Okay. So just to make sure that they online hear this as well, we are amending the original motion to be, we will approve a $3,000 budget towards the rebate program for mulching blades pretty much as a tester to see what the interest is, almost as our survey in a sense, but as a way to test the waters. And Michael has.
I moved that. Yes. Yeah. So.
And I approve my second revision.
All right, I'm going to call this to a vote. All those in favor say aye. 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 Online, if you can raise your hand or somehow indicate your approval.
Aye.
Okay. All right. All those who are opposed, same sign. Anyone online? All right. The motion passes. So we approve for a $3,000 budget towards the mulching blade rebate program. Okay. I apologize, Elizabeth.
Hold on.
I know that tonight was difficult. This is Elizabeth Bishop, that because we had the technical problems, but if this is the second meeting, I'm come prepared to do a presentation. I think that has been emailed to everyone, the Delano Green Space Project. I have made some changes and we've gotten some more answers in terms of costs and so forth. And we are looking at utilizing the Park Foundation as a way to handle the money, because the organization is not at this time a nonprofit, a certified nonprofit organization, somewhat like, if you remember, the Fresh Air Baby Camp project for the parks. I think that worked much the same way, and would also help us with the side where we're doing some fundraising and adding to it. So those are some of the changes that would be from what you may have seen at a previous meeting, but I would have a chance to be at the top of the agenda.
Yeah, when we do the agenda, and I'm saying this kind of for the city staffs, as we work the next agenda, let's put this project at the top of the line. We won't do any other proposals or presentations before we do Elizabeth's next week. Or next month, I should say. Yep, sounds good. And again, I apologize for the technical issues and not being able to get through the full agenda this evening. So we got 9 minutes. So I am going to adjourn this meeting. Thanks everyone for your time. Thanks Ty and Michelle and Lori for presenting and Elizabeth for being here, and looking forward to next month.